The air at 22,000 feet is thin enough to kill a man in minutes. Captain James "Mac" McAllister knows this. He's known it since flight school, since his first high-altitude run over the Channel, since the morning briefings that always end with someone's chair empty the next day. But right now, in the cramped cockpit of his P-51B Mustang, with frost creeping across the canopy edges and his breath fogging the inside of his oxygen mask, Mac isn't thinking about the cold or the altitude. He's thinking about the black smoke beginning to trail from his engine cowling. It starts as a whisper, a slight vibration in the stick, a barely perceptible shudder through the airframe that most pilots might dismiss as turbulence. But Mac has 417 hours in this aircraft. He knows every rattle, every hum, every harmonic resonance of the Packard-built Merlin V-1650 engine that powers his fighter. And this is wrong. The date is October 14th, 1942. The mission: deep penetration escort for a formation of B-17 flying fortresses hitting ball-bearing factories in Schweinfurt, Germany. It's the kind of mission that makes even veteran pilots check their wills before climbing into the cockpit. The 8th Air Force has been hemorrhaging bombers over occupied Europe, losing them to swarms of FW-190s and BF-109s that tear through formations like wolves through sheep. The P-51 Mustang is supposed to change that. With its laminar flow wing and that beautiful Merlin engine, it can fly farther, faster, and higher than anything the Luftwaffe can throw up. In theory. In practice, Mac's engine is dying. Red 3, this is Red Leader. You've got smoke trailing. What's your status? The voice of Major Tom Hargrove crackles through Mac's headset, steady but edged with concern. Mac glances at his instrument panel. Oil pressure dropping. Coolant temperature climbing. The numbers tell a story he doesn't want to read. Red Leader, Red 3. I've got a leak somewhere. Oil pressure's in the yellow and heading for red. Below him, through breaks in the cloud cover, the patchwork fields of northern France spread out like a quilted blanket. Somewhere down there, the French resistance is hiding in farmhouses and forests. Somewhere down there, German soldiers are manning checkpoints and flak batteries. And somewhere down there is where Mac will end up if this engine quits completely. The formation of B-17s is already miles ahead, silver crosses gleaming in the October sun, vapor trails streaming behind them like the wake of ships on an ocean of sky. The rest of Red Flight, 3 other Mustangs, are tucked in tight formation, their pilots undoubtedly watching Mac's aircraft with the practiced eye of men who know that today it's him, tomorrow it might be them. Can you make it to the rally point? Hargrove asks. Mac does the math in his head. They're 40 minutes deep into France, another 20 to the target, then the long haul home. With a healthy engine, it's tight but doable. With a dying one. Negative. Red Leader. I'm losing oil fast. I'm going to have to break off. There's a pause. In that pause, Mac hears everything that isn't being said. Breaking off means going home alone. It means crossing 200 miles of enemy territory without a wingman, without the safety of the formation, without anyone to watch his six. It means becoming a lone target in a sky full of hunters. Roger that, Red 3. Head for home. We'll see you at the debrief. If there is a debrief, Mac thinks, but doesn't say. He banks the Mustang left, feeling the aircraft respond with a grace that makes the P-51 a pilot's dream. Even dying, she handles like a thoroughbred. The engine cough, a single sharp interruption in the smooth thunder of the Merlin, and Mac's heart clenches. "Come on, baby," he whispers. "Just get me home." The smoke trail is thicker now, a dark smear against the blue sky that might as well be a flare for any German pilot within 50 miles. Mac pushes the nose down, trading altitude for speed, angling northwest toward the Channel. 200 miles. Might as well be 2,000. The engine coughs again. And this time, it doesn't stop. The Packard Merlin is a masterpiece of engineering. 12 cylinders arranged in AV configuration, supercharged to deliver over 1,400 horsepower at war emergency power. It can pull a P-51 to 440 miles per hour in level flight and over 500 in a dive. It's the reason the Mustang can reach Berlin and back. It's the reason Mac is still alive. And right now, it's tearing itself apart. The coughing has become a steady hammering. Metal on metal, something loose or broken or both, rattling inside the cowling like a prisoner trying to escape. Mac's oil pressure gauge has dropped into the red. The coolant temperature is climbing past 120 degrees Celsius. White smoke is mixing with the black now, streaming back over the canopy in a ghostly veil. He's down to 15,000 feet and descending. The math is brutal and simple. Without oil, the engine seizes. Without coolant, it overheats. Either way, it quits. And when it quits, Mac has exactly two choices: bail out or ride it down. Bailing out over occupied France is a death sentence of a different kind. Some pilots are helped by the resistance, smuggled through safe houses and eventually back to England. Others are shot on sight by Wehrmacht patrols. Some disappear into Gestapo interrogation centers and are never heard from again. Mac tightens his grip on the stick. He's not bailing out. Not yet. The radio crackles with cross-chatter. Other flights checking in, bomber crews calling out flak positions, someone screaming about a fighter on his tail. Mac switches to the emergency channel and keeps his mouth shut. The last thing he needs is to broadcast his position to every German listening post between here and Paris. The French countryside slides beneath him, green and gold in the autumn light. He can see roads now, thin gray lines cutting through the fields. A village with a church steeple. A railway line heading east. Landmarks he tries to memorize in case he has to walk home. Then he sees them. 2 black dots at 10 o'clock, low, climbing hard. Mac's blood goes cold. He knows that silhouette, the blunt nose, the wide-tracked landing gear, the radial engine cowling. Focke-Wulf FW-190s. The Luftwaffe's best. Shit, Mac breathes. The 190s are fast. Faster than the P-51 in level flight below 10,000 feet. They're heavily armed, with 4 20mm cannons and 2 machine guns. And they're flown by men who've been doing this since Spain, Poland, France, and Russia. Men who know every trick, every advantage, every way to kill an American fighter. Mac's engine is barely holding together. He's trailing smoke like a wounded animal. And now he's got 2 of Germany's finest closing in for the kill. He shoves the throttle forward. The Merlin screams in protest, the hammering inside the cowling rising to a machine gun tempo. The airspeed indicator climbs, 220, 240, 260 miles per hour. Not enough. The 190s are still closing. Mac's mind races. He can't outrun them. He can't outfight them, not 2-on-1, not with a dying engine. His only advantage is altitude. He's at 12,000 feet now. The 190s are at 8 and climbing. He hauls back on the stick. The Mustang's nose rises toward the sky, the horizon dropping away as Mac converts his speed into altitude, clawing for every foot of height he can get. The engine shudders, coughs, nearly quits, and then catches again, roaring its defiance. 10,000 feet. 11. 12. The 190s are still below him, still climbing, but slower now. The FW-190 is a beast at low altitude, but up here, in the thin air, the supercharged Merlin has the edge. If it holds together. The lead 190 opens fire. Tracers arc up toward Mac, bright orange streaks that seem to float lazily through the air before screaming past his canopy. He kicks the rudder, skids left, then right, jinking to spoil the German's aim. More tracers. Closer this time. Mac hears the sharp crack 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 of rounds passing nearby. One punches through his left wing, leaving a ragged hole the size of a fist. He can't keep this up. The 190s are persistent, coordinated, working together to box him in. One climbs to cut off his escape, the other hangs back, waiting for Mac to dive into his guns. Mac's altimeter reads 14,000 feet. His engine temperature is in the red. Oil pressure is nearly gone. The Merlin is running on fumes and prayers. And then, impossibly, Mac sees it. A gap in the clouds ahead, thick and dark, a towering cumulus formation stretching from 5,000 feet to 20. It's a storm cell, the kind pilots avoid because it'll beat an aircraft to pieces with turbulence and ice. Right now, it looks like salvation. Mac points the nose at the clouds and pushes the throttle to the firewall. The Mustang leaps forward, engine screaming, smoke pouring from the cowling. The 190s see what he's doing and follow, tracers stitching the air around him. The cloud wall rushes up. Mac doesn't hesitate. He plunges into the gray. The world goes white. Then gray. Then black. The Mustang bucks and shudders, hammered by winds that throw it around like a toy. Mac is slammed against his harness, his head cracking against the canopy frame. Ice forms instantly on the wings, the windscreen, the canopy. The airspeed indicator spins wildly. The altimeter unwinds. He's blind. Disoriented. Flying on instruments that may or may not be telling him the truth. And somewhere in this maelstrom, 2 German pilots are deciding whether it's worth following him in. Mac counts to 30. Then 60. Then 90. When he breaks out the other side of the cloud, the sky is empty. The silence is almost worse than the noise. 3 seconds after Mac breaks out of the storm cloud, the Packard Merlin runs smooth and strong, as if the punishment of the last 30 minutes never happened. The hammering stops. The shuddering fades. For 3 beautiful, impossible seconds, Mac thinks maybe, just maybe, the engine is going to make it. Then it seizes. Not a gradual failure. Not a slow wind down. The Merlin locks up mid-revolution with a sound like a sledgehammer hitting an anvil, and the propeller stops dead. The sudden loss of thrust throws Mac forward against his harness. The nose drops. The airspeed begins to bleed away. Mac is now flying a 10,000-pound glider at 9,000 feet somewhere over northern France. His first instinct is to restart. He reaches for the ignition, his hand moving on muscle memory drilled into him by hundreds of hours of training. But even as his fingers touch the switch, he knows it's pointless. You can't restart an engine that's welded itself together from heat and friction. The Merlin is dead. Completely, irrevocably dead. The mathematics of gliding are unforgiving. The P-51 has a glide ratio of about 15 to 1 under ideal conditions, meaning for every 1,000 feet of altitude, Mac can travel roughly 3 miles forward. He's at 9,000 feet. That gives him maybe 27 miles. 30 if he's lucky and the air is smooth. He has no idea how far he is from the channel. Could be 40 miles. Could be 80. The storm cell threw off his navigation, and without the radio compass, which runs off the engine-driven generator, he has no way to get a bearing. Mac scans the horizon. To the north, he thinks he can see a slightly lighter shade of gray that might be the sea. Or it might be wishful thinking. Or another cloud bank. Or nothing. He trims the Mustang for best glide speed, about 180 miles per hour, and points the nose at that patch of maybe sea. The aircraft settles into a smooth, steady descent. No engine noise. Just the whistle of wind over the airframe and the occasional creak of metal. It's peaceful, in a way. Like sailing. If sailing involved being shot at. The first flak burst appears at 7,000 feet, a black puff of smoke off his right wing. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. Someone down there has spotted him and called in the guns. Mac banks left, then right, weaving between the explosions. Each maneuver costs him altitude and airspeed. Each turn cuts into his already thin margin of survival. But getting blown apart costs more. A burst catches him close, so close he feels the shockwave rock the aircraft. Shrapnel punches through the fuselage behind the cockpit with sharp metallic pings. Mac checks himself instinctively. No blood. No pain. Lucky. The flak follows him down. 6,000 feet. 5,000. 4. Mac is low enough now that he can see individual buildings, vehicles on roads, soldiers running to man more guns. And then, through the haze and smoke, he sees it. The channel. It's real. Not a hallucination. Not a cloud bank. The actual goddamn English Channel, gray and cold and beautiful, stretching out to the horizon. But it's still 10 miles away. Maybe 12. And Mac is at 3,000 feet. He does the math again. It doesn't work. He's going to come up short. He's going to hit the water at least 2 miles from the beach, maybe more. And even if he survives the ditching, which is far from guaranteed in a P-51 with its belly scoop and narrow fuselage, the water temperature this time of year is cold enough to kill a man in 20 minutes. Mac has ditched aircraft before in training. It's violent. It's terrifying. And it's nothing like the real thing. But he's out of options. He reaches down and unlocks his canopy, shoving it back. The wind roars into the cockpit, tearing at his flight suit, his helmet, his oxygen mask. He rips the mask off and gulps down the cold air. His hands move automatically, loosening his harness straps just enough to get out fast, checking that his life vest is secure, making sure his parachute quick releases are accessible even though he's too low to jump. 2,000 feet. The water is rushing up now, no longer a distant abstraction but a very real, very solid surface he's about to hit at over 100 miles per hour. Mac pulls back on the stick, bleeding off speed, trying to level out. The Mustang responds sluggishly without engine power to help. He's balancing on the edge of a stall. Too slow and he'll drop like a stone. Too fast and he'll cartwheel when he hits. 1,000 feet. 500. He can see waves now, white caps rolling across the surface. Mac takes a deep breath and braces himself. The P-51 hits the water tail first. The impact is like being hit by a truck. Mac is thrown forward, then sideways, then forward again as the aircraft cartwheels across the surface. Water explodes over the cockpit. Metal screams. Something in the fuselage gives way with a crack like a gunshot. And then, impossibly, the Mustang is floating. Sort of. The nose is already going under, dragged down by the weight of the dead engine. Water is pouring into the cockpit, shockingly cold, rising fast. Mac has maybe 30 seconds before the whole thing goes down. He yanks the harness release and kicks himself up and out of the seat. The life vest inflates automatically, dragging him toward the surface. He breaks through into air and light, gasping, choking on seawater. Behind him, his P-51, his beautiful, faithful, dying Mustang, slips beneath the waves with barely a ripple. Mac treads water and looks toward shore. 2 miles. Maybe more. He starts swimming. The cold is the enemy now. Mac has been in the water for 8 minutes, and already his hands are numb. His legs feel like lead. Each stroke is harder than the last, each kick weaker. The life vest keeps him afloat, but it can't stop the cold from seeping into his bones. 2 miles to shore. It might as well be 200. He tries to swim in a straight line, fixing his eyes on a point on the distant beach, a white building, maybe a lighthouse, and pulling himself toward it. But the current is against him, pulling him east, parallel to the coast. For every yard he gains forward, he loses 2 sideways. The mathematics are brutal. At his current pace, accounting for the current and his failing strength, he'll be in the water for at least 40 minutes. Maybe an hour. The water temperature is roughly 50 degrees Fahrenheit. According to survival charts Mac memorized in training, That gives him maybe 30 minutes before hypothermia sets in. An hour before unconsciousness. 2 before death. He's not going to make it. But Mac keeps swimming anyway. Because that's what you do. You don't quit. You don't give up. You keep fighting until you can't fight anymore, and then you fight a little more. His training instructor at flight school, a leather-faced veteran of the First World War named Captain Hendricks, had told them all the same thing on their first day. The aircraft doesn't decide if you live or die. The enemy doesn't decide. You decide. Every second you keep going is a second you're still in the fight. Mac keeps swimming. Somewhere behind him, back over occupied France, the mission is still unfolding. The B-17s are probably over the target by now, fighting through flak and fighters, dropping their loads on factories that will be rebuilt in 6 months. Men are dying up there, burned alive in flaming aircraft, cut to pieces by cannon fire, tumbling through the sky with shredded parachutes. Mac wonders if they got the ball-bearing plants. Wonders if it was worth it. Wonders if any of them made it home. A wave breaks over his head and he comes up coughing, spitting seawater. His arms feel like they're filled with concrete. His legs have stopped responding properly. He's starting to shiver, deep, uncontrollable tremors that rack his whole body. This is it, he thinks. This is how it ends. Not shot down in a blaze of glory. Not ramming a German bomber in a last act of defiance. Just cold and alone in the channel, drowning by degrees. Then he hears the engine. It's faint at first, almost lost in the sound of waves and wind. But it grows louder, a distinctive, chugging rhythm that Mac recognizes instantly. A boat engine. Small. Maybe a fishing vessel or a patrol craft. He tries to shout, but his throat is raw from seawater and cold. What comes out is barely a croak. He raises one arm, the only part of him that still has any strength, and waves. The engine sound grows louder. Mac twists in the water, scanning the waves, and sees it, a Royal Navy rescue launch, gray paint and white wake, cutting through the swells toward him. The boat pulls alongside and hands reach down, grabbing his flight suit, his vest, his arms. They haul him out of the water like a netted fish and dump him onto the deck. Mac lies there, shivering violently, unable to speak, unable to do anything but breathe. "Got him!" someone shouts. American pilot, still alive. "Get him below. Blankets and hot tea. Move." They carry Mac into the cramped cabin and wrap him in wool blankets that smell like diesel and fish. Someone presses a mug of tea into his hands, but he's shaking too badly to hold it. A young sailor, can't be more than 19, steadies it for him, helping him drink. The warmth spreads through Mac's chest, and slowly, agonizingly, feeling begins to return to his extremities. With it comes pain, his hands and feet burning as circulation resumes, his chest aching from the impact of the ditching, a dozen small cuts and bruises making themselves known. "You're a lucky bastard, Yank," the sailor says, grinning. "We were running a patrol sweep and saw your smoke trail. Watched you ditch. Hell of a landing." Mac manages a weak smile. "Hell of a swim. 2 miles out. Most blokes don't make it half that." The launch commander, a lieutenant with a weathered face and steady eyes, crouches beside Mac. "Can you tell me what happened?" Mac gives him the short version. The mission. The engine failure. The German fighters. The storm cloud. The long glide home. The ditching. The lieutenant nods slowly. "You made it farther than any crippled aircraft I've ever seen. What you did, getting that Mustang all the way to the channel on a dead engine, that's either incredible skill or incredible luck." "Probably both," Mac says. "What matters is you're alive. We'll have you back at Dover in 30 minutes. There's an ambulance standing by." Mac closes his eyes and lets the warmth of the blankets and tea seep into him. He's alive. Against all odds, against all logic, Against the cold mathematics of glide ratios and water temperature, he's alive. But the Mustang is gone. The beautiful P-51B with the Packard Merlin and the laminar flow wing, the aircraft that carried him across 200 miles of enemy territory on a dying engine. She's at the bottom of the channel now, another piece of wreckage in a sea already full of them. 2 days later, Mac stands in the briefing room at RAF Debden. His hands are bandaged. His ribs are taped. The flight surgeon wanted to ground him for a week, but Mac talked him down to 3 days. Major Hargrove is reading the after-action report. The mission to Schweinfurt was a bloodbath. 60 B-17s lost. 600 men. The ball-bearing factories were hit, but not destroyed. They'll be back in production within months. You did good, Mac, Hargrove says quietly. Getting that bird home on a dead engine. That's the kind of flying they'll talk about for years. Mac doesn't feel like a hero. He feels like a man who got lucky, who made 1,000 small decisions that could have gone either way, and somehow, ended up on the right side of the line between living and dying. She was a good plane, Mac says. She was. And you were a good pilot. Still are. Hargrove closes the folder. We've got a new Mustang coming in next week. She's yours if you want her. Mac looks out the window at the flight line, where rows of P-51s sit gleaming in the autumn sun. Somewhere out there, another pilot is climbing into a cockpit for the first time, running through checklists, feeling the power of that Merlin engine rumble to life. Yeah, Mac says. I want her. Because that's what you do. You don't quit. You don't give up. You climb back into the cockpit and you keep fighting. Until you can't fight anymore. And then you fight a little more.